So first, I'd like to know your first and last name and where you grew up.
I grew up in Washington, D.C.
Okay. And what is your name?
Jeanne Morgan Fox.
Oh, I like that middle name. Okay. What was your lifestyle like during the Great Depression?
Well, it was pretty much normal, except we had to cut back on things. My mother made my clothes and my sister's clothes, even our coats and hats. And we ate healthy food, but inexpensive food. She shopped very carefully. And my father took a 10% cut in pay. He worked for the government, and all government employees had their pay cut 10%, and then a little later, it was cut another 10%, 20% in all. And I remember my parents had to take a second mortgage on our home. Let's see now. But our life was very normal. Went to school, went to parties as a little child. had an exciting life because living in Washington was a little unusual. Mm-hmm. And went to a lot of parades and saw a lot of famous people, and it was exciting. But then I went off to school, to college, in 1936. And I went through college and I went through graduate school. And everything seemed normal, except we were very thrifty. My parents were very thrifty. And then I took a position in Philadelphia, and I worked there. And I was working there when World War II started.
Now, what did you do for your job?
I was in charge of training the new employees for the store. It was Strawbridge and Clothier, one of the largest department stores in the country.
Oh, wow.
And I was the training director. I came by that job unexpectedly. I went in, was a member of the training department, and the woman who was in charge joined the Waves, and she went off to war. And I was the most educated one, because I had gone to a special graduate school for retailing personnel. And so I got the job, and I was only maybe 22 years old. And it was a big job, and it was a little scary, but I enjoyed it. So the war affected me that way. I got a big job in a hurry.
That's good. How do you think Washington, D.C. was different than other places in the country?
As I was growing up, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my friends came and went. So many of them's parents were in Congress or diplomats, and I'd have a good friend, and then they'd be transferred, or they'd go. And I was invited to quite a number of congressional parties, and that was fun. And when I was little, my father would take us on Sunday afternoon, and my sister and I would go down and play around the Lincoln Memorial, and there next to the Lincoln Memorial was where the Jefferson Memorial now is. There was a huge pond, and on it was a little boat. It was a boat with a swan's head, and we used to take rides around there. And once I saw them baptizing a group of people in the Potomac River right down there behind the Lincoln Memorial. And we had a lot. It was interesting being in Washington, and I saw a lot of famous people in parades, and it was a wonderful place to grow up.
That's amazing. Now, when were you born?
I was born in 1918, March of 1918.
Oh, wow.
That makes me 100.
Now, were you born in Washington, D.C.?
No, I was actually born in Marietta, Ohio, and my father was getting his PhD at Yale University,
Oh, wow.
and so my mother had to go home to her parents when I was born, and he took a position with the National Bureau of Standards, and we joined him in a few months after the heat of Washington was over, and I was there all the time I was growing up.
Now, a lot of these you've already answered. Do you have any memories that you'd like to share?
Well, I did go to a reception at the White House when I was 18. I graduated from high school, and my mother and dad were always invited to an annual party at the reception at the White House for government officials. And Mother said this year would ask me to take her place, that she wasn't feeling well. But I think she just wanted me to have the experience of going. So I went with my father to a reception and met President and Mrs. Roosevelt, and watched people dance to the Navy dance band music, and it was interesting.
Now, did you listen to President Roosevelt's fireside chats or any motivational speakers?
I used to hear them, yes.
You did?
Mm-hmm. Incidentally, when I used to drive, my father occasionally drove me to high school, and we went through Rock Creek Park, and I saw Eleanor Roosevelt riding horseback in the park with just one man behind her on a horse. That was her security. And I saw J. Edgar Hoover driving to work in a red convertible with the top down. And I saw the Justice of the Supreme Court being driven to work in what was then a limousine. So life was just interesting.
That is interesting. Now, to turn it back over, did you have friends or family who fell on troubled times during the Great Depression?
Well, my father had a friend who came and spent the weekend with us. He was a stockbroker from New York. And he went back to New York, and they had the stock market crashed, and he jumped out of his office window in one of the high-rise buildings. That was the greatest tragedy, personally, of the Great Depression. But no, everybody just sort of got by somehow.
Now, to go into World War II, I feel like I've already asked this sort of, but how did your lifestyle change besides your job?
Well, I worked for the Stage Door Canteen, and I was an air raid warden in Philadelphia. I used to patrol the roof of my apartment house, and we had to have blackout shades and pull them at night so no light would get out. And we saved grease and aluminum foil and all kinds of things they used in the war effort. And we couldn't get nylon hose, and we used to draw a line down the back of our legs like the seams of stockings. And But we all pitched in and worked as a group. You know, everybody was trying to help,
Mm-hmm.
and that part was good.
Now, I see that you have a picture on your side table. Who is this?
That's my husband. He was a lieutenant in the Navy, and we were married during the war. And he worked as he negotiated contracts for the Navy Air Force. He helped get their prices down, the contractor. Saved the government a lot of money. And he didn't have to go overseas. He was stuck behind a desk, as he said.
Now, did the boost in the economy at the start of the war affect your financial standing?
No, I wouldn't say so. No. It always was just what it was. In those days, not much. When I started working, I earned $25 a week
Oh, wow.
back in 1942. And
How was your morale during the Great Depression?
morale.
Mm-hmm.
I was like 11 years old, and everything seemed fine to me. I wasn't too aware of what was going on.
Did your parents ever explain to you what was going on? Did they really tell you?
No,
No.
they never talked about money and everything. Don't waste it. But they didn't talk about money.
Did you have any friends, or besides your husband, did you have anyone that you knew very well that went to war, that went to go fight?
What did they do?
To go to the war,
Yes, most of my generation went to the war. I graduated from college in 1940, and right then it was just people were starting to enlist, and in 41 was when I finished graduate school, and by that time a lot of them had gone.
Do you have any questions?
Did you have any friends or family who lost their jobs or lived in areas that weren't so fortunate as DC was? And do you know about any of their experiences?
No.
So you were very lucky.
I was, I don't know of any relatives or people in Washington were rather fortunate if they worked for the government. They got a pay cut, but they kept their job.
My mom kept a book of food. There were food allotment stamps. Did your family have to use those?
Yeah. We used them during the war, but we didn't use them during the Depression.
Right, but it was during the war.
Yeah, we had them for meat and
So what did you use those stamps for?
for meat. Meat.
Meat.
Just meat?
And gas.
What other questions? I don't know what y'all's focus is of the...
No, there were some you've really answered every question that we had.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, good.
Oh, a victory garden.
Oh, right. Did you grow a victory garden or?
No. We were in the city and, they just, but I know they grew them.
Mm-hmm.
What was the purpose of victory gardens?
I'm pretty sure it was like growing, the purpose of it was to like grow food for people in the army, right? Or not people in it, but like,
Well, just for you and your family and I guess I don't know.
yeah.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, me too.
All right, I think that's great.
I don't know whether they could do it for them.
I don't know.
That's funny, I just don't remember.
So you weren't fearful during that time at all. Your parents hid a lot of things from you. You just felt like life was normal.
It was. It was.
That's very lucky.
Yeah.
I know I was.
Very lucky. My mom wasn't born during the Depression. Well, she was born in 33. And so she remembers World War II and having to ration, and not buy as much meat and fuel and those types of things. But she grew up on a farm, so they always had plenty to eat and didn't have problems.
Except not all farmers were that lucky to have things to eat. Because we watched a documentary in class, and it was how there were some farmers that grew their crops and stuff. They took all of their livestock and everything that they had, the government did, they sent all of the livestock over to the army, and I can't remember, then once they ran out of food with their crops that they had, then they'd usually take it into market to sell all that they could to make money for it, because all of their livestock was gone, except for maybe a few chickens and a cow. Or
Like my grandparents had a farm where I was born. In fact, that's a picture of it right there.
oh,
But but my grandfather had a cow and some chickens and a few things like that.
Were they affected much?
No. As a matter of fact, my grandfather had died by that time. I think I've been rather well protected from things.
That's nice. That's nice.
That's a good thing.
We have too. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't think that we've had